Starter maintenance. Take one. Okay. This is a me thing. This is not a, I don't know, a proven thing or it's just what I've been doing. It's been working for me. So I keep 2 starters. I like keeping glass jars. Some people have the twist top jars. What I do is I keep a mother starter. And this one doesn't really get used. I just like, what I've been doing is keeping it as backup. So I'll take the mother starter, I'll leave it in the fridge, and then once every week or 2, I will discard down to 100 grams and then feed it, let it come to like active, and then put it back in the fridge. And I just do that just so I have a backup starter in case anything ever happens this one goes bad. This one I'm using every week, so not a lot changes. I just feed it, let it grow, put it in the fridge, feed it, let it grow, put it in the fridge. And I'm feeding it when I'm using. So because I'm making 200 grams worth of starter every time I use it, I keep it, it's a little bit more than 100 grams right now, but I keep it about 100 grams of starter, and then I feed it to the cat. I feed it 100 grams of flour, 100 grams of water, let it rise and get active, and then I put it in the fridge. Or I use it, and then I put it in the fridge. So this one's really easy. You just take it, zero it out on the scale. I'm gonna add 100 grams of, people say don't waste bread flour, but I always have extra bread flour kicking around. You can use all purpose, you can use, there's different kinds of starters you can make too, using different kind of flour, but because I'm always making just a bread flour sourdough, I just use bread flour for my starter. It doesn't make sense to me. Even though people are like, oh, don't use the expensive stuff, and I'm like, oh, 100 grams, it's not that much. So it doesn't matter if you go over 100 grams, as long as you match the water. It's 1-to-1 parts. For me, other people have different feeding ratios too that they swear by, but this is what's worked for me over the past year. Or I don't know, however long I've been doing this. What are we at?
96.
Whoops.
114.
Okay, so exactly what I said. You can go over it. So 114, so you want to put 114 of water in there. So 228 is your math. So this is important. Don't put too much water in it. If it gets too watery, it doesn't seem to like it very
211.
much.
218. Stop.
2 grams. I don't think it makes a big difference. Okay. Once you have it weighed, the flour's in there, you just use magical chopstick, and then you can bring the camera. Oh, it'll show up above too, but I'm just basically stirring this, and I'm making sure I get the sides as best as I can, and it's going to make this watery, doughy kind of texture. I find this about perfect, like almost like lava is how somebody described it one time, and I think like same kind of texture as you would expect from lava. And I just try to scrape down the sides as best I can with the chopstick. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if it dries and it's been there for a while, you can get mold on it. What I do is every month and a half to 2 months, I'll just take out 100 grams. I have 4 of these jars. I'll take out 100 grams of this. I'll put it into a new jar. I'll just discard this and I'll start a fresh jar so that it doesn't get too gooey and too dry and stops mold from coming out. What I'll do now is I'll rest this. Again, the warmer it is, the faster it's going to rise and become active. Again, because we're lucky it's Florida, I just keep it outside. It's usually 3.5 hours or so. If you're keeping it at room temperature, it's probably going to take you longer than that, probably 5 to 6 hours to rise. So that's the hard part, is figuring out the math of doing bread. So doing this early in the morning is really good. Feeding it, getting it going, probably take 5 or 6 hours, I would say, probably in Vancouver. Again, so what you're doing is, here's a cool trick you can do. You take an elastic band and you can just put it around the jar right at the level that the starter's at. And then you can just come and check and judge it. And when it gets to approximately double, that's when you know your starter's ready to go. As long as it's bubbly, you can see bubbles on the side and bubbles on the top, you know it's ready to go. So I leave it a little bit open for a little bit of air, because if you don't, if you close the jar tight, the gas pressure can cause it to crack and shatter. So I just let it leave a little bit of air. If you have one of the glass jars with the screw top, you just put it lightly on top and just don't seal it. Okay, that is your active starter that you're using for your bread. The mother starter that I keep in the fridge, what I do is my one weekly maintenance, and this is just keeping and maintaining it. If you look at it, it's been in the fridge for a while, and you can see it's got this water on top of it. It's called hooch. There's two schools of thought. Some people say, and it smells pretty sour. Some people say just stir it in. Some people say drain it. I found that stirring it in works fine. So what I'll do is I'll stir it all back in. And you'll notice this thing it's been sitting non-active for about 2 weeks. You notice that the consistency isn't quite as lava-y as the other one. So I'll just stir this really good, probably like 30 to 60 seconds worth of stirring. It'll start to reconstitute a bit. But you can see there's no real bubbles in it. It's not active. It's pretty tired and needing some food. So once you have it all stirred up, probably to about there, what I'll do is, you notice I have the jar weight, 651 grams. What I'll do is I'll discard this down to 100 grams only in there. So you just do the math. So you turn on the scale, you put this on, you'll ask Alexa, what's 1038 minus 651?
1038 minus 651 is 387.
So 387 grams. So I want to discard approximately 287 grams from this here. So I'll just start. So you can go, that's the other thing you do is like, or actually, duh, all you have to do is make this weight 651 plus 100. So really I just got to get down to around 750. That is a way easier way of doing it, and I'm such an idiot, I forgot, and that's how I normally do it. Okay, so I just get a little bowl here and I'll just discard. Ruthlessly discard. You can do stuff like there's discard recipes for like pancakes and fried discard and all kinds of things. I haven't tried any of it yet, but worth looking up. And you don't have to go right down to 750. I usually leave a little bit extra in there, just because when I make my bread I tend to go a little bit heavier, so I use a little bit more. I don't know. It doesn't have. The nice thing about this, the one thing I hate about baking and why I never got into baking is because everything's always so exact. But I find with the sourdough you can be a little bit forgiving, a little bit. You don't have to be exact, and it'll still turn out good. And again, there's always room for better. I'm sure if you're exact, it's better, but I don't know. I don't have time for exact. Like, that's good enough for me. I got a full bowl of discard that I'm just going to toss in the garbage. Don't rinse down your drain. It's not good for the drain. Okay, and then once you get it to here, it's just the same method as cooking your starter. I just do 100 and 100. Again, there's a whole bunch of schools of thought on that. There's 5-to-1 ratios and 3-to-1 ratios and all kinds of different ratios. But I just do 100 and 100, and it's been turning out absolutely perfect for me. People rave about the taste and texture of my bread, and it seems so easy. Like, they're very easy numbers to remember. 100-ish again.
Is that 114? Is that too much?
No, that's exactly where we landed last time.
Okay.
So we're going to 228. Whoops. Okay. That's if you put too much water in, you just gotta add a little bit of flour. So I gotta add 7 more grams of flour. So I gotta go to 242. Hopefully I did that math right. Oh, okay. Better more flour than water. Again, doesn't have to be exact. It's good enough. Basically 100 and 100 is what you're shooting for, but get close. And now you're stirring this in until you get that texture. This one here I like to stir a lot more just because it's been inactive for so long, so it's going to take a lot more stirring, whereas the other one's been super active because I use it 3 times a week. Okay, I think this should be about good. Now you're going to leave this either at room temperature for 5 to 6 hours, or here's a trick. If you want to do it faster, you can put it in the oven with the light on, and it's going to raise the temperature of the oven probably to like between 80 and 90 degrees depending on your oven light, which will speed this up. And you can probably do it as little as 3.5 hours or as much as 5. That's actually more for when you're trying to bake bread that day. This year we're just doing maintenance on our other starter, so just leave it on the counter until it looks about double and throw it back in the fridge. That's what I would say. And that's it.